I guess the first question that we're thinking about is the prognosis for Austin. I know he was hopeful about getting back for their first regular season game. He's on IR to start. What's his status?
I think the designation of injured reserve is just that he won't be a full participant in camp off the start. I think he's back skating. He'll come out of the splint, and then as we get rolling here, basically 3 weeks from tonight is opening night. I think we'll have a better indication then. But we have no change to what we expect, and that's for him to be ready as he said last week.
So there's optimism he'll be for October 13th.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the other question I have right now is getting past, the past and what happened in May.
Yep.
But how much do you have to keep in mind that a lot of the things that happened in the regular season were really good things, and
right.
Convincing the players to forget one part of what happened last year over several months?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that we've spent a lot of time talking about that. A lot of the questions when I've done these types of events around the draft and expansion draft and free agency have been about that, Terry. I think that we can look back and learn from it, but we only control what we do today and every day moving forward. So I don't think we can hide from it and run from it. I just think that we have to do everything we can as an organization to be ready for when those moments come again, that we're as prepared as possible. And I have full faith in everybody in that room that they are going to be ready to roll. But the other part of that is we can't allow our focus to get distracted on the long run. We have to stay focused in the future because of the division we're in. If we allow our focus to slip and we're not dialed in on being at our best every day, we're gonna put ourselves in a tough spot. So that's really our major message in there right now, is not to get distracted by the long run, not to get distracted by redeeming ourselves from the past. It's be focused, to be at our best every day. Otherwise, in a division with Tampa, Boston, Florida, Montreal, an Ottawa team that's declared their rebuild over, and then Buffalo and Detroit getting better, we can't afford to be distracted at all as we proceed through the year.
Mark?
Kyle, what off-season change do you think is going to make the biggest impact?
Well, we hope they all make a big impact, Mark. But I think that the key that we're going to focus on, obviously, we've got changes on defense and forward and goaltending. The defense, by and large, remains the same with just Zach Bogosian out, and we've added some good depth players, and we'll see our younger players take a bigger step, we hope. Up front, we've got quite a few changes. Rather than try to make a splashy move, we've tried to acquire a group of players that we think have just begun to show their potential or fit a specific need we have, or need a chance at a bit of redemption is where they're at in their career, get themselves back on track, and we're hoping to provide that here. And then in net, obviously, with Peter Mrazek in to tandem with Jack. So we expect, I'm excited about the depth up front, and then excited, obviously, to see Peter and Jack work together coming off the years that they each had. Obviously, Peter's a little bit shortened by injury, but excited about that for camp and into the season.
Morgan Rielly, in the final year of his contract, starting camp in that situation. Why are you comfortable with that scenario right now?
Yeah, I just think that the contract negotiation thing with the flat cap, there's a lot of teams that are dealing with it. There are bigger situations that with players in the league that still don't have contracts going into today. So that's a personal matter for Morgan and a private one for us. But I think every team that's trying to contend is going to be dealing with those types of situations with the flat cap, where you have players coming due, and you want to see where things go throughout the year with the cap. Maybe it goes up, maybe it doesn't, but that's the situation with Morgan. As we did last year with our players that were UFAs, we'll keep them private until we have to make an announcement on them one way or another.
Josh Cupperton, CP.
Yeah, Kyle, just going back to what Terry was asking about. I mean, clear talking to Mitch and Austin at the overarching, last week talking to them, the overarching messages. So you can't do anything about the past. Don't worry about the future. Just stay in the moment. But how hard is that in this market when there's so much history, recent, and then going back decades?
For me, Josh, we don't carry the burden of 54 years or whatever with us. A lot of the people in that room when I walk in there weren't alive then, or most of them weren't, or all of them weren't. So I don't think that resonates with them. I think what I've learned about this group in the last 3.5 months is that they care tremendously about, rather than proving all of that stuff wrong, they care about proving themselves and what they're about right. And I think that's the key to anything, is that there's a number of teams all throughout sports that provide us a great number of examples of overcoming the things that you're alluding to. And if you go through and study them all, it's when that becomes a personal and deep belief to them internally. And that's what I've seen from this group in the last 3.5 months, which makes me excited and optimistic about where we're going.
It's no secret there's ramped up pressure. There's always pressure, but how much pressure are you personally feeling heading into this season?
I think if you're referring to external pressure, I can say, and I know it's cliche, but it's nothing compared to what I expect and the pressure that I put on myself. So I know I think we all know what we've signed up for here. I think it's a great privilege to work in this market with people who show up in the type of numbers like this, to attend these types of events and ask hard questions and keep us accountable. I think it's great. I think everyone here is fair in their criticism when it's warranted, same as you're fair in praise when it's warranted. And I think that for me personally, it's just doing the job the best I possibly can to do right for the people I work with and work for, and roll from there.
Kevin McGran, Toronto Star.
Hi, Kyle. 2 questions for you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
First, on Austin Matthews' surgery, can you walk through the timeline and the logic of when it was done, why it was done so late in the summer as
Sure.
opposed to earlier in the summer?
Sure. That was just a plan that was formed by the Leaf medical team and Austin and his group that represents him, was that going into the summer, we always want to avoid, especially on the wrist of a player like that, if you don't have to do a surgical procedure, you'd like to avoid it. When he ramped up his training in the summer, he began to feel discomfort. Our plan that was agreed upon at the end of the season was, if he ever felt that right away, that we would move on to the consultation with Dr. Hotchkiss in New York, and that's exactly what we did. Caught it in mid-August, or first 10 days of August. He had the surgery went for the consultation, had the surgery a few days later, and the expectation is to be ready for opening day.
And to follow up on Josh's question, but to put it perhaps more directly, do you feel that your job is on the line more this year than previous years?
It's a question that I can't really answer, Kevin, and something that I don't worry about. The only thing I worry about every day is being the best I can and managing this team for our staff and our players. And I think if we all work together throughout this year and are at our best throughout the year, that none of that will be a concern.
Thanks.
Lance Morby, Toronto Sun.
Kyle, you've put a lot of faith in the core four, so to speak, as you've said, during the summer. Any talks with any of those guys, or have they come privately to you to say, we have your back, it's that faith is reciprocated?
None have come specifically. We also don't refer to them as that. I think the core of our group, Lance, is much more than 4 players. So for me, I think we've had a lot of very frank discussions with our group, but I think the more important part has been the discussions that they've had together, and that's up to, I think those are largely private, but they may elect to share some of that with you all today. I believe in the group in the room deeply, and I think your belief, it's easy to say you believe in something when it's at the beginning and it's relatively easy and everyone's very optimistic, but true belief is tested when things get a little bit hard and you struggle and you fall and you have to pick yourself back up and continue to move on. And that's how I feel about the group in the room. I think that group in there will win if we can continue to move ahead and continue to build and progress day to day, especially coming off of the things that we have in the past, learning from them, as has been mentioned here, and rolling ahead into this season and being focused on being the best we can each day.
A couple of years ago, when those guys were younger, you were big on letting them grow and letting them have
Sure.
off-ice interests and all that. Do you still feel that's the way to go, that they're maturing the way that you had hoped?
I've seen massive maturity from all of them, all of our younger players. Austin and the steps he's taken, all throughout the rink. Obviously, he's a prolific goal scorer and was the top goal scorer in the league last year. Mitch, as a elite penalty killer and voted to the first All-Star team last season individually. William led our team in scoring in the postseason last year and has continued to grow and evolve and really become the player that everybody thought he could be. And I think there's still room for all of those players to grow individually. But the great thing that I'm happy about, Lance, in this offseason has been what I've seen from them in terms of their care about the team. And from the exit interviews through to today, how their mindset is about the team more than it is about anything else, and what they can do to help the team on and off the ice. And so in terms of their growth and the things that I see day to day from them, I'm thrilled with them. But we need to continue. They're still very young, and they're not close to what most would consider to be their peak. And so we need to continue to help them, push them, challenge them, hold them accountable, and roll from there.
David Alter, Hockey News. We'll take three after that. Pierre, Luke, and Chris.
Hey, Kyle, I got a couple for you as
Sure.
well. First, in the goaltending situation, I know it's going to be a tandem, but is there an open competition for the starter or who gets more starts?
I think, like with any competition, David, that'll be decided throughout the season. And if one of them runs with it, then that's great. But I think the system that we've decided on has been that we want them to work together. We want them to be a great pairing together, and give our team a chance to win every night that either one of them is in net. So.
Okay, and last year you had the advantage of the taxi squad, obviously, with the team up against the cap. It's going to be hard to carry a maximum amount of players. I'm wondering if you can speak to the challenges of not having that is going to be like in terms of roster management going forward.
Yeah, I think we're extraordinarily fortunate that we have the Marlies, 200 steps across the hall and, a few mile or so down the road at Coca-Cola Coliseum. So last year, obviously dealing with the season and the way that it was formed, it was nice to have the taxi squad for reasons of practice and rest and such, and to have people at the ready in case things happened. This year we'll be back to the way it was, and we've got a lot of work, and Brandon Pridham spends all of his time making sure that we're in a good spot, that we're never left playing shorthanded or things of that nature. So we've gone through all that this offseason to make sure we're ready to roll, and with the Marlies here, we're just very fortunate to have that. Thanks.
Luke Fox, Sportsnet.
Hi, Kyle. After the exit to Montreal, there's a lot of talk about killer instinct and how the group needs more of it. I'm just wondering what resources the organization provided the players with that regard. How do you work on the guys' mental game?
Well, it's a great question. I think that many players and athletes have gone through the early portions, and teams have gone through the early portions of their existence, and athletes through the early portions of their career, and had tremendous talent, but faced that same question, and I think it only gets asked with regards to playoff success. It doesn't, you don't come in the regular season unless you have a history of losing leads and such and say that the team lacks that. So I think for me, Luke, the way that we the way that we get our team ready for those moments is through our preparation each day starting now. I don't think you can get to the playoffs and just flip a switch and it comes. We've had moments and opportunities to put teams away, and we haven't done that yet. But I think in terms of resources, it's the way that we practice. We've made changes to our staffs and added Greg Harden as a peak performance coach that Sheldon can speak to more in depth, to try to help our people and our staff and our coaches be at their best in moments when the pressure comes. And I think that we just have to lean into that. We can't run from it. We can't hide from it. We have to prepare each and every day, because that's what it's going to take. In order to get to those moments and be excellent in those moments, you have to live it here every single day and be at your best in practice, in the gym, and be ready for when the light shines brightest. And that's what we're preparing for.
And just a thought on Nick Robertson. How open is the path for him to crack the team right out of camp, or do you foresee him building with the Marlies?
I have no preconceived notion about, especially on the left wing, who's going to be on the team and where. So the path for Nick is to do as he does and bulldoze his way through it. He wants it. Starting today and tomorrow is go out and grab it.
Chris Johnson, Toronto Star.
Hey, Kyle. Might be a good follow, but with bringing Hosang and Gusev in on tryout arrangements, how open is the door for them, given the number one-way contracts already on the roster?
Same answer, basically, Chris, as Luke on Robertson, is that they're going to be given a big opportunity in training camp. It's a much smaller camp than we've had in Sheldon's first full camp as a head coach, with exhibition, preseason, so on and so forth. But they're going to be, we're not bringing them in to fill out the bottom end of the roster or the third team of the training camp as we have in the past. They're going to be brought in and given chance to play with our best players and show what they can do. It'll be up to them to take advantage of it, and if they force their way through and beat out somebody that already has a contract, we'll sign them and they'll be on the team, and we'll deal with the reverberations from that.
And there was a recent report that Ilya Mikheyev had asked for a trade. I'm wondering if that's true and where you see his standing with the team at the moment.
The answer to that is that Ilya Mikheyev is going to be on the team and going to be a big part of the team, and we're looking forward to getting the most out of him. So any questions that I would refer to Dan Milstein.
Pierre LeBrun, The Athletic.
Kyle, thanks for taking the time today. You mentioned right after, with a lot of conviction, that you were not going to entertain the thought of trading one of your top 4 forwards. But you can't stop other teams from phoning you anyway. That's their job.
Right.
Was there interest in Mitch Marner this offseason, and how did you handle that?
I'm not going to get into Pierre's specific calls. We get on specific guys. As I've said in the past, my belief in that group and there, not just the terminology that gets thrown around, but what I would say is the entire core is immense and unwavering. You always have to, in this job, consider anything that's going to make your team better. And there was nothing that came along from the end of our series to today that I felt was even to be considered in terms of making our team better. We would have been different, and maybe that would provide some cover and appease the masses a little bit, but we wouldn't be better. And that's why my belief in that group is so large, is that I feel that when these big moments come again, that they are going to be at their best and they are going to have success. And I believe in them as people. I believe in them as players. They're obviously very talented players, but also people and what they're about. And I know that they take this stuff personally and that they'll be ready to roll this season.
Just one more. We're going to hear from Sheldon here momentarily. What do you feel his learning curve has been like? That was a big moment of adversity for him as well, losing in the first round. How do you feel he'll bounce back from that?
Yeah, he and I have worked together a long time now, Pierre. And, in all of our previous stops have sort of dealt with this early on, where we have disappointment. What I see from Sheldon each day is that he continually reinvents himself. The coaching staff, he obviously, with Dave Haxtell moving to Seattle, we had to make changes to the coaching staff. So bringing in Dean Chanouth and then bringing in Spencer Carberry, and just from my vantage point, because of some of this construction work that's happened here, I've been in closer to them, and this was the same last year, than I've ever been. And I think the environment, the spirit of the group, their preparedness for the season, when stuff like that happens where you don't reach your goal, Sheldon, to me, that's when he gets to be at his best, is that he's not resigned to a certain way of doing business or a certain way that things have to be done. He's always looking for ways that things can improve. And in every season and in every stop I've worked with, whether it's been with the Sioux or the Marlies, now this is the opportunity here to do the same. When we've had those moments of disappointment is when I've found that he does his very best work. And I'm excited to get at this season with him again and get rolling.